How could you lean on your experiences as a caddy to better your perspective as a golf television executive?
Interesting question. I think, I've grown up around the game, obviously, with my brother being as good as he is.
Not to be confused with an MMA fighter who actually shares his name. I could see Tony maybe getting in the ring. I don't know, but I do know that he knows a thing or two about sports. He is the Tony Tortorici, that is a sports television executive, a veteran in the space. I'm Bryan Fenley. This is the Sports Media Podcast, and the human side of Tony is about to be on display. Tony, so glad to have you. Thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks, Brian. Been looking forward to doing this ever since you reached out a little while back. So
Absolutely.
let's go.
Let's do this. I feel like we're going to be having a long, fun, engaging conversation. I know that you've seen some of these that I've done before and just building this thing as we go. And you've built, speaking of building, you have built quite the collection of sports memorabilia. What has to pass the Tony test to be worthy of being an item that gets to sit on one of your shelves?
Well, I collect a lot of things, and then what gets shown, I guess, is, the next level. But what I have kind of in this room is just really just moments and pieces from my entire career. I've got all kinds of signed baseballs, and I've got a puck from Sarajevo when I worked on the Olympics in 1984, which was pretty cool. That was, hockey is what we worked on, and that was 84. And obviously, what happened in 80 was pretty special. So we were hoping to catch lightning in a bottle again, but clearly that didn't happen. So, I don't know what the level is. It's just, I guess it depends on how good it is. Do I kind of remove something else, or do I, just add it depending on, what we have in store here?
The Wheaties box behind you, have you eaten the cereal inside, or is that still as is?
No, that's still as is. And that has Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods on it. That was from my Golf Channel days. Big golf fan, as you probably can tell. Over my shoulder there, I've got a caddy bib that pretty proud of the bib and kind of the experience. And I'll just jump into that because in 1983, my brother Victor qualified for the U.S. Open at Oakmont, and I was a production assistant at ABC Sports, and the U.S. Open was on ABC on the weekend, was on ESPN on Thursday, Friday. So it was the ABC crew that was producing, directing, and putting on the U.S. Open. So I took the week off from ABC because I was caddying for my brother, and everybody there knew that was the case. So it was kind of cool in that way. And then all of a sudden, my brother played really well and was on the leaderboard and was tied for the lead after 9 holes. We got some TV coverage, and obviously they knew our story. So maybe we got a little extra coverage because of that. But really, really cool. Unfortunately, the back nine didn't go so well, and neither did Friday. So we had 2 hours of really whatever, plus fun and moments we'll never forget.
The back nine on Thursday might have not gone so well, or Friday, but what went well as far as the way you handled yourself as a caddy in your performance in those 2 days?
It was all about him. What you learn about caddies is, show up on time and, don't be late and, don't say anything unless you're spoken to or whatever. It's really about the relationship with the player. He was in charge of everything. If it was just me trying to kind of give a pep talk here or there if necessary, and not step in any other players' lines on the green and that kind of thing. It was pretty heady stuff. It was something again I'll never forget.
How much would he rely on you for advice, or, hey, what do you think about how long I should go as far as what club I should use and things like that?
Yeah, well, I'd love to say he leaned on me, but honestly, it was all him. I think he did it for me to kind of like, hey, this will be kind of cool for you to caddy, but he knows his game and all of that stuff. So yeah, he wasn't leaning on me for anything.
How could you lean on your experiences as a caddy to better your perspective as a golf television executive?
Interesting question. I think, I've grown up around the game, obviously, with my brother being as good as he is, and I started playing when I was maybe in third grade. So I understand the subtleties of the game and just how it all works, and the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things, the respect and honor and all that kind of stuff that the game is all about. So. You know, it's just a wonderful game and a game that you could play all your life. And obviously, that's kind of something I'm doing now a bit more than maybe I have in the past, which I'm certainly enjoying. But being a caddy and working in the golf business, again, it's just kind of knowing, where you stand, where you are, and what company you're in, and how to react at the right time to the right, situation. You got to be very respectful in the golf world, and certainly caddying probably helped me kind of understand that.
Given that it is summertime and you do have time now that it is nice weather in where you are in Minnesota to go out there and play golf, when was the last time you had some openness in your schedule in a summer before this summer?
Well, I like to say right now, I've my parents did a great job of raising. I've got three brothers and myself, and we all have a great work ethic. And we had a paper route in the family that went down from one brother to the next to the next to me. I was the last one. So probably had that around, 10 maybe. And then I was a golf caddy all throughout junior high and high school. And a lot of times my friends would have gatherings and go to the beach. And I said, "Ah, I can't go. I got a caddy, blah, 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 blah." But it really kind of helped instill a work ethic that I'm very proud of. And really, I think you know, probably since I was 10, I think I've worked every summer the rest of my life. So this is really a welcome change and kind of a great chance to look back on my career and where I've been and, potentially where I go from here.
Looking forward to talking about that with you, but you mentioned when you were 10 what you did. How old were you when you started reaching out to broadcasters and writing them letters about your interest in the industry?
Yeah, I think I was probably 12 or 13. I'm just I'm a sports nut. I just love it. I wrote letters to Kurt Gowdy, Tim Ryan, Frank Gifford. I think that's the group, and got responses back from them, just giving advice. I thought I wanted to be an announcer type like you, but that was really when I first got an interest in it. But I also, as a kid, things I did and still have to this day are albums of photograph pictures. I'd write to team, Yankee players. I've come from New York and other teams and ask the person for an autograph picture. And a lot of times, they came back with a picture. Sometimes it's a real autograph, sometimes it wasn't. But I remember Bobby Mercer was the first one I got. So just a big sports fan. I love it. And to be able to work in that industry really turned out to be the perfect fit for me. As I like to say, I've worked over 40 years, but I feel like maybe I worked maybe 2 weeks in those 40 years where it was difficult. But the rest of the time, it was just awesome. Loved it.
In
Loved it.
your mind, what makes it where you can enjoy the amount of time you did, and how would that juxtapose to when it is more challenging?
Well, it's probably all in the same breath because it's really about the people. I've managed people really my entire career. At various levels, some more responsibility than other times. But, it's about kind of who you're dealing with and what the expectations are. And, I remember when I was working on the Calgary Olympics that there was a producer that, had just come into town. It was early on. We weren't fully set up yet. And this person was just asking for the moon and being a real pain. And it was just like, oh my God. really, don't you understand kind of where we are right now? We need a little bit of time to get set up, So it's things like that. That is just it's just people and how they go about things. But also that's the plus of the business to me. I mean, the people that I've met along the way are just lifelong friends and just so many talented people along the way, including all my stops, whether it was ABC, Golf Channel, or the Fox Sports North days that brought me here to Minneapolis.
Among those three stops, you've often said that they are like three different lives that you've had. How do you
Mhm.
come to see it like that?
Well, the ABC was pretty heady stuff, I have to say, because that I was the graphics coordinator for the 1984 Summer Olympics. A young kid in charge of that. We did the world feed and the domestic unilateral feed. So we had like 50 Chiron operators all around California that had discs, and there was no email or cloud versions of things back then. And if there was a problem with a disc, you had to make the change and get it out to the 50 venues basically that that needed that change. So it was really a lot, but the other plus to that was as the graphics lead graphics person, you're also on the prime time show, and in that case, Rune Arledge was the producer. So pretty cool to work with one of the legends in the business, with that. So back to the ABC days, it was Olympics, it was Monday Night Football with Howard Cosell, Don Meredith. I worked with O.J. Simpson, a host of others, and college football, Keith Jackson. I mean, just everybody that worked at ABC in the heyday was really somebody I worked with for the most part. So that was really a cool chapter. And then when that was kind of coming to an end, Golf Channel opportunity opened up to be the executive producer there, and based on what we've already talked about and the golf and background that I have, it was just like, wow, what a marriage. It was the next level up to the executive producer from a coordinating producer, and now it's in golf. And when you do golf events, you're generally going to pretty nice places. So, when you're on site, it's a pretty cool experience to have a golf course be your office for the week. So that was exceptional, and honestly, that was the Tiger Woods years. I was there for the most part from 2000 to 2011, and I should probably figure out how many majors he won during that period, but certainly the majority of what he did was during that period, and it's just pretty special to be at the channel at that time because as his star rose, so did ours, and people were watching. And that was great. And then this last chapter so far, Fox Sports North, honestly, I was trying to figure out what was next. And I had interviewed a bunch of places and had some lines in the water, so to speak. And this one kind of came through. And I'm living in Florida. And I'm like, really? Do I want to go to Minnesota? How many families go in that direction? It's everybody goes the other way. And I ultimately decided, you know what? Let me try this. Let me see. I know I've had good experiences in Minnesota when I was there for Monday Night Football. Let me just go see. I'll go ahead of the family and see if this is going to work. And it turned out to be an incredible stop. I mean, some of the most talented people I've ever worked with, including the ABC Golf Channel days I work with here. And just the pride of ownership. I mean, people here want to work at what was then Fox Sports North. That was all the local teams. They weren't interested in ESPN or something on a national basis. This was the end of the road. This is where you wanted to be. So we had a lot of talented people. I mean, I'll just bring one name up. His name's Matt Gangle, and he is the director for the World Series. He's been directing the World Series the last 5, 7 years, or maybe more. I don't even know when it started. But when Bill Webb passed away, it soon became apparent that Matt Gangle would be the successor. So that's the level of people that we're dealing with here.
How would you liken all these people that have come up after you as like a college football coach's tree?
Hmm. Yeah, well, the interesting part about my job at ABC Sports was I was in charge of what was called a taxi squad, and hiring runners, which is really how I started for $35 a day back in the day. And you always wanted a stable group of people that could work on shows and do various jobs, whether it was a booth manager or work with the sideline talent or whatever it happened to be. I mean, I remember, runners lists. I still have some, I think, from Super Bowls and things like that. And so there are a lot of people that I kind of came in contact with this taxi squad situation. And then ultimately, I was, pretty helpful to a lot of people in getting them in the business, but from the taxi squad, then you got hired kind of full time at ABC or somewhere else. So, I mean, there's a ton of people that I've worked with that are still working today in some pretty big positions. I've got a good friend, Bill Bonnell, who's at ESPN, who's in charge of their college football and has done Rose Bowls and the championship game and works with the Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit crew for years now. Got, well, Sam Flood, who's big deal at NBC, was a runner for me at Sarajevo in the Olympics, and he was really just starting out, and I gave him a little quiz, and that was tell me about the Russian weave. Can you diagram that with for me so I could understand it? And he did, and I still have that somewhere. There's like 2 pages of analysis on how it works. But I thought it would be helpful for me to understand it, and that was Sam. So people all over. Pete Macheska, who's produces the World Series for Fox and works next to Matt Gangle. He worked with me for many years on Monday Night Football and other shows. I mean, the list is really endless of people who, either came through the ABC Taxi Squad or I was, a central figure in hiring them and watching over them as they started their career. It's really probably one of the things I'm most proud of is just seeing the lineage of people that are in the business now that I feel like I had a pretty big part in them, getting their career going. And then obviously it's up to them to do something, with it. And a lot of them have.
One of those people that you haven't mentioned yet that you have helped in the past and they have gone on to incredible things is Brian Anderson. And what people don't realize about him is that you see him doing everything now, but golf really was at the forefront of what he was doing early on. What did you see in him, and how did that all come to be, where Brian Anderson and Golf Channel became something that would then go on to lead to much more for him?
Well, it's really a pretty cool story. Grant Boone, I believe, was our play-by-play guy for the nationwide tour, and he left to go on and do some other things. Ultimately, he came back to Golf Channel, but there was an opening, and we had many tapes at the time, not links, and Brian's was one of them, and the voice was just very special. You could tell he had it, but he really hadn't done anything in golf yet, at least on TV. But he had played minor league baseball. He was a catcher, and then he worked, I think, at a golf shop, I think through a Hyatt hotel or something like that. And he was the sideline reporter for the San Antonio Spurs when he came across our desk, and we looked at it. We brought him in for a demo and all of that, and we all kind of shook our heads. You know what? This guy's got it. So that kind of became the beginning of my relationship with Brian, and it really goes through today, which is really kind of incredible. And there's some twists and turns that are very interesting, and that um, his last contract with the Golf Channel that I negotiated with him, we got through the money and the years and all that, and everything was okay. And I could tell something was bothering him. All right, what else? Come on, how do we get this done? He goes, well, I came from baseball. If any of the Major League Baseball teams offers me a job, there's 28 of them or whatever, I need an out for that. So I'm like, we're over the phone, so it's not like, he could see me. But I'm like rolling my eyes going, what are the chances of him getting a Major League Baseball job? This is the easiest give I've ever had. So I go, all right, Brian, you know what? All right. Yeah, yeah, okay, fine. If that's really important to you, then let's get this done. Let's do it. So all goes well. And then I forget what year it was. It was during the Christmas, New Year's holidays. I get a call from Bryan, and he goes, "You know that clause that we put in the contract?" Yeah, which one? The baseball one? He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to exercise it. There's nothing you can do. The Brewers have offered me the lead play-by-play job. It's what I've really, wanted all my life. Traveling on team planes and all of that. I really feel bad that I'm doing this to you right now, but it's just really it's a life-changing job for me." I was like, "Geez, really? Oh my God." So, we figured things out and it kind of went forward. And then I left the Golf Channel and got this job here in Minnesota, and it's also was in charge of Fox Sports North and Fox Sports Wisconsin. And where does Bryan work and do the Brewers in Fox Sports Wisconsin? So I became his boss again in 2012. So it was like he can't get rid of me. And obviously we kept in touch during the in between years and all that kind of stuff. And he's still a really good friend today, and we just have a great time whenever we're together.
What was in his tape that he sent you for golf?
I think it was more about stand-ups and interviews. I think that the golf part was more of the conversation when he came in and we talked to him and just tried to get a sense of, all right, what does he know about golf, and is he faking it, or does he understand it and know it? And he definitely understood it, and his knowledge only got better and better, and his game got better and better because he had some help from some people who know how to play the game along the way. So we played probably about a month ago, I would say. So like I said, we're still pretty close.
You keep score when you guys played?
Yeah, he had rental clubs, so it wasn't his best day, but boy, for a guy his stature and height, he can hit it a ton. So he's got game, put it that way.
When you think about people that you've taken chances on, like I think about Brian and the voice and everything, he had it. He had it, you saw it at a very early stage. What has to happen? I think you kind of alluded this a little bit, Tony, but what do you have to see from somebody to take a chance on somebody that's super good, delivery, the way they comport themselves on screen, and how polished they are, and the right questions they ask in interviews, and the way they deliver overall, to where you would take a chance on somebody to do a sport like golf that maybe they've never done? What do you want to see from that, or what have you seen from people that has given you the confidence to try people in new sports, even when you know that they're really good in other things already?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bryan experience was really just more the sitting down and bring him to Orlando and get to know him and all that kind of thing. But with other people, I've always wanted to, you know, try different things. I've had, two analysts on shows instead of a play-by-play guy just to kind of make it different. I've used back in the day, Jerry Foltz at Golf Channel was, whatever nationwide by.com tour player, whatever, and he became a sideline reporter, and we put him in the booth, honestly, after I think after Bryan left, we put Jerry in the booth for a little bit, figuring that, he can have really good golf conversation with an analyst because he knows how to set them up. He knows, kind of what's going on. It's just a little different kind of conversation. So I've always I've always liked taking chances, like that. And honestly, with some of the positions that I've had, even in more recent years, you're kind of you're not playing at the CBS, NBC, ABC, even ESPN level. You're on a regional sports network, and you really do have the opportunity to give people a chance. And a lot of it too is just your construction of your talent roster and all of that. Do you have the right number of people, enough, men, women, and the rest, that it all kind of works. Because like I remember when I first got here, we had a reporter who left, and we hired Jamie Hirsch, and she's gone on to become a star and worked at NHL Network and MLB now and all that. And and she really helped our roster of kind of, just giving us a little different, younger look and energy and all of that. So, a lot depends kind of what you're looking for, and then what you come across is like, oh, ooh, this could work out really, really well. But honestly, sometimes you're taking a chance. You really are just taking a chance, and then, you have to probably work with that person a little bit more if it's not working out as well as expected. But there've been very few misses and a lot more hits in the years that I've been doing this.
Let me ask you this because how quickly can you feel like you have a firm enough idea on this person has it? And with that said, so how quickly can that resonate within you? And then when somebody you take a chance on, they have it, but they don't show it initially, what will allow you to say, okay, this is somebody we can work with and they'll eventually get there?
Yeah, I've had experiences like that. But honestly, from interviewing and hiring production assistants and hiring people throughout my career, and it's really not an exaggeration. I feel like within 20 seconds of meeting a person that, okay, this person has a chance to get the gig, so to speak. And you kind of start there and like, okay, so sometimes you have these jobs and you're interviewing 40 people or whatever. I mean, we've had all kinds of NBA jobs that opened up, and thank God for Zoom and things like that. We're able to kind of, see them face to face and get to know them that way to kind of start whittling things down. And then you bring the person in and kind of get a little, closer look and view and get to know them. But you know, yeah, not everyone is a success right out of the gate. It really then comes down to, staying close to that person, screening, shows with that person and talking through, okay, what were you thinking here? Or how about next time you go in this direction or whatever it happens to be. That's really the answer to kind of getting that person to the level that you want to get them to, as long as they have the ability.
When you're watching talent and you're evaluating talent, how quickly can you just say, yes, maybe down the road, or this person could use a little bit more work? And not to say they wouldn't get there, but they just need a little bit more work.
Oh,
Oh, did I cut out?
yeah, just for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, the talent's the same way as far as like, again, within 20, 30 seconds, I think I've got a pretty good feel of just like, okay, the voice, and obviously you've watched their tape or their links or whatever, so you have a pretty good idea. But again, when you have a job and you have a lot of applicants, you're really, that first minute you're looking at really is pretty impactful and important. It's like an Emmy tape. You want to make sure you put your best stuff up top, as the rest may not be seen. So it's important, in how those tapes or links are put together, and that, they kind of get the attention of the person who's, in the hiring process.
Your career continues on, and there are going to be people in the hiring process bringing you on, and there's all kinds of different things that are probably stewing in your head about what your next step could be. What are you looking for in terms of, I guess, how strong are your cravings to what you think the next thing could be and what you can give from your experiences and how you can help?
Yeah, it's really kind of the time I'm in right now, is trying to figure out what all that, can be or should be, or, I'm excited about, what's potentially out there. I see it more of this stage, more of in a consulting role than anything else. Obviously, I've worked a lot with talent over the years, so it could be something along that line. Um, we're really happy living where we live here in Minneapolis, so I'm not looking to move at this point in time. If something amazing comes along, obviously you gotta weigh all options. But if it's my choice, I'd rather stay here. We have a great setup here, and even that's really interesting because it's what everybody says. I talked about it before about moving to Minneapolis, and it's like, what they say is that it's hard to get people to move here, but once they're here, you don't want to leave. And we in our family are a perfect example of that. It really is nice here. It really is. The winter, okay, not for everybody, but you know that's why you travel and go away and get the warmth, and you just get away for a couple of times during the winter, and it works.
What
So.
kind of community have you built up in Minneapolis and in your neighborhood?
Yeah, it's great. We have a great neighborhood, and group gets together every once in a while for progressive dinner type things, and some have pools and some don't, so get invited over, that kind of thing. And we live on a dead end street, so there's always something kind of going on with people and kids coming and going. So it's really a nice setup, but what's interesting is, yeah, not having the office to go to and the people that I work with, all the time, it's a lot harder to connect now. Now you got to go out of your way and text, call, and all that to kind of have that conversation that would just happen naturally, every day you went into the office. So, that's been a little bit of a challenge because, you want to stay connected, for, so that's something I'm working on.
How serendipitous have you found that your career is, where things have happened almost, and this is a cliche, but for a reason, where you've just felt like this works and this fits?
Yeah, leaving ABC and going to Golf Channel was really like one of those situations where it was like, wow. ABC was undergoing some major changes, and as I called it, the ESPNization of ABC was kind of getting more and more and more. And there were people leaving ABC or being asked to leave and all that. Things were changing. Um, so it really was a perfect time for the Golf Channel deal to come about. And again, at the next level in my career and in a sport that I really loved, it was like it was too good to be true, really. And just what a great experience again, working with some really talented people. And it's just golf's a fun game, and it was fun being around the majors and the tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And then even coming to the Fox Sports North, days, I really didn't think that was where I'd end up when when I was leaving the Golf Channel and said, okay, what's next? But it just kind of became apparent that, you know what, let's just give it a shot. And boy, am I glad I did.
What's the toughest broadcast that you've ever put on, be it weather conditions, be it amount of people involved, the amount of technology and equipment logistics also that could potentially be involved?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple different categories. I mean, the first really is almost any golf tournament that we did. But I forget what year the Golf Channel got the PGA Tour, maybe 2007 or something like that. And we went full loaded on that and tried a lot of different things. And some stuck, and actually one got me one of those Emmys back there, and it was for something called Aim Point. It was a purple line that predicted the putting line, and like the first and 10 line in football. And it really was quite an effort with a number of different groups that got involved with that. So you really any golf tournament, but just using that as an example. I mean, with all the other sports, you've got one ball in the air at a time, or a puck or whatever. With golf, there's at least 18, so to speak. So that's really kind of a much more difficult task, and the playing field obviously is a lot larger than most sports as well. So it's a different cadence with golf. But the other thing that kind of brings to mind as far as kind of difficulty was, when we kind of went through COVID, and we weren't traveling people and coming up with that. I mean, I once play started up again and they were jamming, every sport was going on at the same time. I had a production list of events that, I mean, for 1 month, it was like, yeah, it was huge. It was probably 4 pages of landscape of a schedule that was just like, oh my God, getting the right people in the right places and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously dealing with people who get COVID, and then oh boy, then having to replace somebody in Kansas City like the day of a game as a director. I think we had that once, and it was just like, oh geez, okay, all right. You smile and so like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. I don't know what the answer is just yet, but we're gonna figure this out because we have to. So,
I read something that there was a the hockey game that you were behind where, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the temperatures,
oh yeah,
was it an outdoor game where the temperatures were in the negative?
oh big time. So yeah, again, with this Fox Sports North and the group here, I came into uh, this part of the business, and they had this day called Hockey Day Minnesota, and oh my God, it really is. It really has been our Super Bowl in a day. We've had as many as like uh, 4 or 5 hockey games throughout the day, and then we have wraparound like Olympic type programming and tell hockey stories. Minnesota is kind of known as the state of hockey, and we work with the Wild and develop those stories and really bring the venue around the state. So it's not always in the Twin Cities. It moves around. And one year, uh, again, might be 2019, I forget, whatever year it was in Bemidji. Um, it was 29 below, and that's not with wind chill factor. That's just 29 below. I walked from the hotel to the rink, and my eyelashes were like frozen. I never had kind of experienced that before. Um, and our crew did a hell of a job. I mean, they got heaters, hair dryers going on the cameras to kind of keep them kind of working. And even though it was minus 29, the sun came out. And when the sun's out, what a difference. What a difference. And they played and the kid, their high school kids are out there playing and, having the, I don't know about the time of their life, but certainly they're going to remember it the rest of their life. And just being part of Hockey Day Minnesota is really something I think people will really, really enjoy and are proud of. And, so are we for putting it together.
When you were working with the regional network up there in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area, you're working with a lot of different professional teams as their broadcaster. What are the best practices for the folks that are on the broadcast side and the folks that say are the executives with the team, and how you get everybody to best be on the same page and listen to one another to know what works for each other?
Yeah, no, that's really, really important. And kind of goes back to kind of what you're saying. It's communication and relationships and building those relationships so that times are good, great. When times are bad, okay, there's a relationship, there's a pipeline. Let's deal with this together. Let's not, go silent on the broadcast team about, a situation, whether whatever, somebody was arrested or whatever it happens to be. Communication is huge. All right, we're your partner. How are we going to kind of get this out and be on the same page? But if a team kind of goes silent on you, well, then okay, it's a little harder, and you may go down the wrong path a little bit, or make somebody unhappy. So it's really important to have the communication lines open, and that really starts with having good and great relationships with your team partners. There has to be trust.
And how much time does it take to really develop that trust?
I think things are always pretty good to start because, everybody wants something to work. And then it's really when you kind of have that first situation where you're all tested and like, okay, all right, yep, all right, good. They issued the statement to us ahead of time, so we know how to put our pregame show together. We're on the same page. This is great. Or it's like, call after call and we're not getting any response and we know we got to deal with it in the pregame show. So now we're going to like touch on it and hopefully not go down the wrong path, but we're going to do the best we can based on what we have. So again, it's just much easier when you have that relationship. But it can get hard on organizations at times because they're in damage control. They're trying to figure it out. And we're just another layer in all of that. But we also can be a mouthpiece. And all right, how do you want this out there? How do you want this spun, so to speak? We're not looking to you know, be this crazy warrior partner. It's more about partnership than journalism, so to speak, if I can say that.
Yeah, it's definitely those are tough situations, and you said it, they're not always easy to navigate, but with trust and understanding that that is a way to diffuse a situation where, yeah, as you said, there's something that happened and you have to bring it up, but you have to know how the right way to bring it up is so that people know that it's out there. You're not hiding from it, but you're also being respectful of the process of
Yep.
what is going on as well. How do you feel like you have improved as a communicator? Like since, say, you're the young runner during the years when you talked about when you were caddying, but when you were working in the business at a very young age, and the way that and I don't want to say improve because you're good at it, but like how have you leaned into it more to really see the power that it can have in a lot of different things?
Yeah, you kind of learn as you go, and I think for me, I've always kind of had the philosophy that I could learn from everybody I come in contact with. For instance, at ABC, when all the producers that kind of I work with, whatever, I took mental notes. All right, this guy's really good at this. He's not so good at that. If I ever get to be a producer, I'm going to do that, but not do this. And then, there's others that, have their quirks too. And it's just like, yeah, I don't think I want to go down that route. But yeah, that's a good trait, so to speak. So yeah, let me steal that. And there's a lot of that in the business. I mean, somebody has a good idea and then you like all of a sudden you see it on another channel in a little different way and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not really a new way of doing things, but being observant and kind of just, watching what's going on, you could learn a lot. I've always prided myself in being a good listener and kind of reading the room, so to speak. And that's really something that I think is very important in jobs like these.
How much of your identity is caught up in your career, in your work, and what you've done?
Um, a large amount, obviously. Obviously, I've got, family and wife and kids and all of that and friendships and that all across the country now since I've lived in a bunch of different places. Um, that is part of the business. Your life and your career and your workplace, it all kind of intertwines as one. You're constantly kind of on call in this business. It's a great business, but it has its challenges. Weekends, holidays, and all that kind of stuff. Everything is kind of a possible workday. And at any point, you could get sucked into a situation, whether you're out at dinner with your wife or whatever, you're suddenly dealing with somebody's got COVID and, we got to deal with this now, kind of situation. So, there's always challenges, but you figure it out. And, it really does kind of become part of who you are, because, it really is a time consuming job.
With your wife, how has she been a backbone for you through these different stages of your career and in supporting you?
Yeah, well, that's Karen's, wonderful with that. She's understood at a early point in our relationship in this business, and we actually met in this business, so she understands it. So that's obviously very helpful. But there were times when I was at ABC producing college football, and every whatever Thursday through Saturday, and come back on Sunday. I'm away, and you got, two and at times three kids, young kids that, you're raising and, you really kind of become in and out of their lives. It's, I always remember it's like, is it worth going home for a day or is that going to kind of upset things and make it even worse? It's just like it's a different dynamic, but she's great at that and understanding and has become a real sports fan. And we still to this day watch a lot of sports. I've got a three TV setup in our main room, basically from the days of having the Twins on one TV, the Brewers on the other TV, and whatever on the next TV in the middle, or crossover season where you got five teams going on at once. So it's just good to kind of have eyes on things depending what's going on. But thankfully she's into sports and likes watching it.
What's the key to knowing what's going on in five different games on five different screens at the same time?
Well, the good news is, if you have a good group of people that are working, they'll alert you to something in case you're not on top of all five at once. They're kind of taught to, bubble things up and get us involved so that, we can either help with the team or whatever the situation may be. And we've had all kinds of, weird things happen along the way. Um, so, as long as you have that working where people will alert you, you have a really good chance to kind of help and be part of the solution to whatever's going on. You can't really follow all five at once, but if you have them on, you can kind of get a sense what's going on and where they're at, and then you also get into kind of a game leading into another game, or, are we going to post game? Or are we going to pre-game? Is it going to be a blended type situation? Do we even have time? What about sales elements and all that kind of stuff? That's where there are times where it really can get tricky and, we have to kind of be on top of things.
I have one more question for you here, and I feel like we could go on for a while, but you said that when you would work, say, college football, ABC, you'd be home just for a few days early in the week, and you had kids, and it was tough given the circumstances and the way the work was presented and the hours and the scheduling and all of that that went into it. As you progress in your career and as your kids got older, where did you find were the times where you could best show up for them, and what did those look like?
Um, Well, yeah, I guess really in the ABC days, I really didn't have much sway on my schedule. It was, even though I did put the schedule together, I mean, if I'm doing a game, I'm doing a game, that kind of thing. Once I kind of became more executive, then I really had a chance to kind of like, okay, what's going on at home? What can I be at? And when should I be traveling and being on the road doing what I need to do there? There I really started and continued, when I got here to Minneapolis to have a much better work-life balance because I could kind of control that a little bit more. But I wouldn't trade those ABC days for anything. They were what a great foundation. And then the other part of it too that we really didn't kind of talk about is just the commute. And like when I worked at ABC, I started living in Manhattan, but I ended up living in Long Island, and the normal commute was a 10-minute walk to the train station, 15 minutes maybe, get the train, get into Manhattan, Penn Station, get on the subway and get to the stop and then walk, to 66th Street where I was. Well, that's all fine and good going, but coming home, you're relying on that subway. Because if that subway doesn't hit at the right time, you're not making your train, and now your commute's another half hour longer because you're going to be on the next train. And in those days, there were no cell phones. So, when my wife was coming to pick me up, if I didn't show up on that first train, it was like, oh, geez, he missed the train. All right, when's the next one coming in? And there's kind of unwritten understanding between us that I'd be on the next one. So that's part of it too. That's part of the whole day. And in at the Golf Channel, it was probably more like a 35, 40 minute commute, which wasn't so bad, where the ABC one was an hour 15 on a best case scenario. And then here in Minneapolis, it was really more like 20 minutes. So I kind of went in the right direction of commute and being able to kind of, work more hours, but I was traveling less time, which was great.
The nice thing about this interview, Tony, is that there was no commute.
There you go.
In your home.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten used to working from home over the last few years, and that was even better.
Well, it's been more than better to have you here. It's been great to be able to have you on to share your story, and excited to see what comes up next for you, and to be able to hear these experiences, the stories, the passion, everything, the people that you've impacted, the way you look at the industry, the outlook, the family, and how it all kind of comes together in this sphere to to make you who you are. It's been fun diving in to all of that. Tony Tortorici, I'm Bryan Fenley. Tony, thanks so much for joining me down this road of deep conversation and insights, and really appreciate your time.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to go down memory lane. I enjoyed it.